Sure, I'm Dr. Gerald Lackey. I'm the DMV Commissioner in the Commonwealth of Virginia. That's a great question. Really, I think it's less of a trade-off and more of a balancing act. Obviously, people expect when they show up to our service centers that they're able to get taken care of quickly and efficiently. So we actually have to do both at the same time. We run our operations on a cadence of daily, weekly, and monthly operating metrics reviews. And so we look at all aspects of how we're serving the public, whether it's online or whether it's in person, making sure that we're staying within the controls that we set. On the long-term strategic side, we need to look at it usually at a quarterly, semi-annually, annually perspective. And there, we're not using operating metrics as much as OKRs and funding priorities. And where the balancing really comes in is in money and people's time. So you need to be able to fund your operations and do continuous improvement and enhancements there. But at the same time, we need to be able to invest in the longer term plays, the things that may take 1, 2, or 3 years to fully develop. And of course, with people's time. The best people working on your long-term initiatives are often your best performers in operations. So it's being strategic about where you ask people to spend their time and how much of the time you ask them to spend. But if you do it right, you balance both and you run both tracks at the same time. I'm glad you said practical, because it's interesting. I was around for 1.0, 2.0, I guess the new thing is 3.0. I think that the fundamentals of it haven't really changed. So it's, what do your customers need? And what is the business's mission? In our case, our agency is safeguarding and shaping the motoring public. And so we need to make sure that what our responsibilities are part of the equation, and we need to look at what our citizens need from us. In between two of those is the process that we create. And so the process has to balance our responsibilities and their needs. And what I'm hearing from citizens is things like they want to be more digital. They don't want to fill out a bunch of paper forms. If they can, they'd prefer not to come in. They prefer to do things online. We're seeing a shift from online usage to mobile usage. Everybody has their phone with them. We're seeing security and privacy be a big thing. We're constantly being hit with spam. People getting texts that said that you owe something to the DMV. People don't want to be confused. They want to know that the communications with the Department of Motor Vehicles is secure. They want a secure notification, an app like a lot of the private sector does, so that you don't have to rely on whether that text or email is authentic or whether it's spam. We're hearing a lot about one-time use. So meaning that they want to be able to enter their information once and not have to enter it over and over and over again. That requires us to link data, to think about digital workflows, and to make sure that if you come in to do one transaction, that you don't have to repeat information like your name, your address, all of that stuff over and over again. And I think lastly, they want to stop being confused. And this is probably the single biggest challenge for DMVs across the country. We speak a language that customers don't. People talk in terms of plates and tags. We talk in terms of registrations and titles. It's different. And so you often find that where you have a conflict between customers and the DMV is in that translation. So Government 3.0 for me is about still fundamentally, what do you need to deliver to your customers, and what does your agency need to provide as part of its public mission? But doing it in an age where digital infrastructure, security, and privacy and ease of use is top of mind. This is something that at the DMV here in Virginia, we've been on a mission over the last 3 years to shift that thinking. So if you go out to our service centers back in 2023, every day was experienced for the first time. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, you were surprised by what happened that day. You hit the demand as whatever it was coming in the door, and you reacted to it. So the first step is switching that from being reactive to the demand that's coming in and start to predict the demand that's coming in. And you do that with data. There were a lot of folk tales around, hey, Fridays are busier, or Mondays are busier, or Saturdays are busier. And we looked at the data, only about half of the time were the managers correct in assuming which days or times were going to be busier than others. So get to the data and start predicting what's going to happen. Because when you can do that, you can start predicting how many people you need. So if you expect a certain amount of demand in terms of customers, you put a certain amount of staff online. And you don't do that on a day-to-day basis. You do it on an hour-by-hour basis. Now the next step is having a plan for when that prediction fails, because it always does. We call that ServCon levels. So every one of our stations has a template that says, hey, if the line reaches this length, if it's going up to this pole or this window, you need to switch around your configuration, because you're configured for normal operations. You're configured for the demand that you expect that day. But if that demand exceeds what you expect, you're going to have to shift around. You might have seen this at a Starbucks or something, where somebody comes out from around the counter and starts taking orders from people in line. That's them activating a ServCon level. We now at DMV have the exact same process. Then you need a plan for when your plan actually breaks down. That's a break glass. What do? The plan that we had for ServCon levels and contingency isn't working, and the demand is beyond what we expected. Fourth, you kind of figure out what you need to do if you break glass. So you want to look at and inspect where your predictions were off, where your plans failed, where you had to break glass and do something extreme that you didn't intend to have to do, because that'll help you improve those plans and those predictions. Where we're at right now is what I would call the second phase of this. So after you predict the demand, you start to ask questions around, how do I control that? How do I start to reach out to the people who I know have credentials that are expiring this month, or I know are registrations that are expiring this month, so I can predict that they're likely to come in? How do I reach out to them and tell them, come in during this time, set up this appointment, avoid this day? Those direct communications, now that we have a secure platform and emails, allow us to sort of start to control or shift that demand. When we're able to do that, we avoid those high spikes. And so that is the next phase of where we're at, and I think the holy grail of being able for any business to not just predict the demand, but control it enough that it avoids these spikes, which avoid bad customer experiences. So back to the question of how do you stop being reactive and start being proactive. Get the data, create a prediction model, make a plan, make a contingency, learn and inspect what you're doing, and then as you get good at that, then move to, how do I start to shift that? Absolutely. So I see AI being helpful in two ways. One is, you used to have to get a Lean Six Sigma black belt or a data scientist to help you get through the data and create prediction models. AI does a lot of that for you. So you can have a lower skill set starting to help create those predictive models. The other way that AI helps is what I would call human plus. So a lot of roles nowadays are expanding, because you can do more with an AI companion, so a human plus an AI, and that's where we're looking in our back office, or in our what I would call our higher level service centers. How do I enable this person and create a role that's a human plus role? So instead of doing a lot of the manual work that they do, they can create a lot more productivity and throughput if AI is able to handle some of that more routine decision making, more routine work. The difference between automation and AI is important here too, because the automation follows a set rules, but that hits a wall, because if it's not X plus Y equals Z, it doesn't know what to do. AI is able to make some decisions and also know when it's expanded past its ability to make a decision, kick it to a human. So one human being in a given role in one of our work centers can now do twice as much as they were able to do before. That allows you to have a bigger supply on hand, and so it makes managing that fluctuating demand a lot easier. One person plus an AI bot can handle a range of demand that an individual all by themselves can't. I think innovation and security, I don't see them as competing. They're really mutually reinforcing solutions. So at the DMV, the person rolling out our AI orchestration layer is our CISO. It's our Chief Information Security Officer. And I thought we were really unique in that until I learned that Google had chosen to do the exact same thing. If you want to do innovation in today's environment securely, you do it with security in mind. So for us, this starts from the very, very beginning and baking it in from who your suppliers, all the way up through what are the choices you're making with your architecture as you go to deploy this into production. We also create a zero trust environment. So verify everything and everyone that is going to interact with our systems. It doesn't slow innovation, it just requires you to design it or create a set of design principles for doing that innovation that make it secure. Back to what we're doing, all of our AI orchestration layer is created with a platform that's a containerized, secured solution. Now we can do a whole bunch of things with hundreds of different LLMs, but we have created a safe, secure environment to do it. I think the last element is, whenever you're doing innovation, you have a human component to it. One thing AI doesn't do very well is innovate. Right? Human beings still have that creative bug in them, if you will. But you need to think about the humans as a weakness as well as a strength in your innovation efforts. So how do you train humans around the things that they need to be aware of to make sure they don't create weaknesses in the system, as well as automate as much as you can, log as much as you can, audit those logs as frequently as you can, get into a continuous state of monitoring and flagging so that you're making sure that whatever you're doing that's new, if it's behaving in a way that you don't expect, that you're able to go in, that gets flagged, and you look at that specifically to make sure that it's not something that is actually a security breach. So again, I don't see those as competing, I see them as mutually reinforcing, but it requires approaching the innovation with a different set of design principles from the beginning.